Welcome to RC Video Magazine's Volume 2, 1985. In this issue, we will be taking you to the 1984 quarter-scale event in Las Vegas, Nevada. Doug Pratt will be talking to us about four-stroke engines. We then travel to Kansas City, Missouri, to the Scale Masters Championships. In this issue, we will have coverage of the 1984 Tournament of Champions in Las Vegas, Nevada. Jeff Troy shares his building tips with us, and we will be looking at another event at the 1984 Reno NATS.
Hi, I'm Rex Perkins. I'm the president of the Quarter Scale Association, and I'd like to welcome you to our 8th annual QSAA Fun Fly. QSAA stands for Quarter Scale Association of America. We are actually, with this quarter scale event, everything has to be scale. It has to be a man-carrying aircraft. QSAA, meaning the quarter scale of the airplane, is actually 1/4 the size of the real airplane. Some airplanes cannot be built in quarter scale because they're so large. It's like a DC-3, B-17 bomber, or whatever. So with these wingspans, they have to be a minimum of 96-inch wingspan, plus or minus 5%. That way we're showing the world that we can build a little bit larger airplane and do it in a safe manner. Out at this lake bed, we fly here every year. It's called El Dorado Dry Lake Bed. We try to fly on the last weekend of October because that way the winds is with us, the weather's with us, the lake bed's nice and dry, and it's not extremely hot here in Las Vegas this time of year. And it gives a good welcome change to people back in the East Coast that have all the nice snow and sleet. This way you can come out and get one more flying session in before Christmas sets in. So with this panoramic view and everything that we have here, we sure hope you enjoy this film and enjoy this tape of what we have here to offer you from models all over the world. You'll see models from Germany, you'll see models from South Africa, you'll see models from France and from Spain. We even have a new entry this year from Panama, and I'm sure they're all going to be very enjoyable to you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, my name is Mel Barber. I'm from South Africa. I brought the DC-3 along with me. This is my first trip to Las Vegas with an aircraft. This is not the conventional aircraft I normally bring. I normally bring sticks and wires along. But being the 50th anniversary of our national airline, and I've always wanted to build a DC-3, I decided about 12 months ago to tackle this project. I still was not going to bring it to Vegas, but I got so engrossed and it became so interesting to research the model that I decided that I would carry on and finish it. By the time I had reached the stage where I could no longer have the time to get the Tchaikovsky ready, I decided to bring the DC-3. It's quite an undertaking to bring an aircraft of this size to Vegas because of the size of the box. However, with a lot of help from our national airline, which is South African Airways, we fly into New York. They sponsored me into New York, and from there I had to make my own way to Las Vegas. It's a 1/10th scale of the DC-3. The model is based on the second color scheme that South African Airways flew it in. The name on the model is Vastberade. This is the Afrikaans for determined. And we chose the name because we were determined to get to Las Vegas with this aircraft. The wingspan is 10 foot. The model weighs 27 pounds. It's powered by two Profi 76 12.5cc motors. The model should fly like a dream. I haven't flown it. It will be flying during the Vegas meet. The retracts I made myself. They are oleo sprung as well as the tail wheel, which is sprung. I have 1,050 hours invested in the model. This is without research time. The undercards alone took me well over 100 hours. The color scheme is the genuine color scheme because we used the genuine chits from the original paint that was used on the South African Airways DC-3s. The colored scheme lends itself to this type of model, which is the DC-3 ex-RAF aircraft, Royal Air Force, American Air Force, American Marine aircraft, and it's affectionately known as the Goonie Bird, and I think it's got a soft spot in every modeler's heart. Thus my determination to build it and bring it to Vegas. Thank you.
This is a quarter scale model of a North American F-82 Mustang, which was flown by Colonel Bob Thacker back in 1947. The name Betty Jo is his wife. The plane was named after him. He flew it nonstop from Hawaii to New York in about 14 hours, which set a world's record at the time. The plane is powered by two 3.7 cubic inch Don Harris modified ropers. It's got 2410 Zinger props on it. Weighs approximately 101 pounds at takeoff. Approximate speed, approximately 75 to 90 miles an hour through the sky. It's covered with permaglass coverite, not permaglass coverite, it's covered with mica film coverite. It's iron on. No paint except for the black and the letters. That's the only paint on the model. My name is Jerry Kickert. I'm the builder of this airplane. This is my pilot.
My name is Bill Hempel, Jr.
B-35 was an impressive airplane. Able to lift an amazing 140% of its weight in useful payload, unmatched until the debut of the 747 20 years later.
Hello, my name is Darrell Meyer. I'm behind a model that was constructed by my brother and myself. It's a 1/12 scale model of the Northrop YB-35. This aircraft was conceived and initiated in design stages during World War II, 1944 to be precise. It was a bomber that was intended to be able to fly to continental Europe and return a range of 10,000 miles non-stop. It has a wingspan in its original form of 172 feet. The total length is 54 feet, original size. This airplane is modeled in 1/12 scale, giving you a wingspan of obviously 172 inches or 14'4". The center chord and tip chords of this aircraft are precisely based on the NAAC numbers of the original aircraft. The washout or incidence, or warp I should say, of the wing is 3 degrees positive at center section, 1 degree negative at the tip. 4 degrees washout achieves several things. One, it eliminates lifting on wing tips, as the airplane may have a tendency to yaw. We were told by the original test pilot, Mr. Max Stanley, who has spent some time with us generously, that the airplane, the real airplane, did yaw up to 10 or 15 degrees, but a very slow oscillation, never achieving a Dutch roll, principally because of the 4-degree washout of the wing. In this aircraft, we've experienced zero change in yaw position. The airplane just flies like an arrow. We've achieved in construction of this, we feel, some original things which we'd be happy to share with the model fraternity. And by the way, the fun of the sport for us is engineering and conceiving some new ideas which we're very happy to pass along to our friends. The drivetrain is straight Boston spur gears, turning a 1/2-inch stainless steel drive shaft, 23 inches in length. There are In this area, 2 ball bearings suspending the input end, 2 ball bearings here on the output end. The spinner to receive the spinner back plate is machined to receive this outer housing. Normally we were turning, standard as you can see, 2-blade Zinger 12/8 prop. We have a gear reduction ratio of 1.2 to 1, allowing us to turn this larger prop at a slightly slower RPM. These engines are water-cooled, especially machined heads, circulating glycol and water through a 16-ounce reservoir located here, through a 23-inch radiator located within the front leading edge slot. We have an onboard glow driver, which powers, obviously, the glow plug, system designed by Chip Conklin. The engines are electronically synchronized by spinner-located magnets running in front of a sensor located on the underside. This goes to a central computer, matching engines 1, 2, 3, and 4, 4 being the master. This system was designed for us by Mr. Joe Utasi, Gilmore Products. There are a total of 34 cells in this airplane and 7 battery packs. Each engine has its own electric water pump. We're using Don Harris's smoker pump. There are 2 1200 milliamp packs for the flight control systems. Merely flipping these systems lights the glow plugs. No external power source required. The landing gear was specially designed by Mr. Bob Walker of Robart Products, Chicago. They're precise scale. The original drawings furnished to us by Northrop Aircraft.
Whether you're just starting or an experienced pro, you'll find Great Plains makes a quality kit for you. For learning, you can't beat a Trainer 20, 40, or 60. They are easy building kits designed to get you to that first takeoff quickly. During training, your instructor will reduce the throttle for slow, stable, and responsive flight. After soloing, our symmetrical airfoil allows high-speed flight without trim changes, even aerobatics. Our Sportster 40, 60, and 40 bike designs are a perfect blend of performance with style. And now kits come complete with 4-cycle conversion plans so your Sportster can sound as good as it looks. The Chaos designs were perfected in competition so they're fast and groovy flyers. 4-point rolls, inverted flight, Immelmans, figure M's, a Chaos will do them all. They're easy to build kits that are light for their size so landings are nice and slow. Experienced modelers will love our 72-inch span Cap 21. It's an accurate scale design that is incredibly aerobatic with a Snurl 60 or 124 stroke. If you have a 40 size engine, think about installing it in one of our realistic new designs. The Cherokee 40 flies like a sport model but looks like a real plane. Flap hardware is included to add a new dimension to flying fun. And our plane will even do mild stunts such as this spin, just like the full-size Cherokee. For breathtaking maneuvers with a 40-powered scale plane, there's our new Cap 2140. Point rolls, knife-edge loops, hammerheads, they're all possible with this superb performer. Lightweight balsa construction coupled with a Snurl 40 engine will give great vertical performance. Just watch this plane climb. Snap rolls are literally a snap. And best of all, our Cap lands like a trainer. That's because it's a great plane. See them at your dealers today.
Now you can see your favorite Great Plains airplanes all year long. This full-color 1985 calendar contains 12 beautiful action and studio shots, plus a bonus centerfold tear-out. Retailing at $6.95, our special price to RC Video Magazine viewers is just $4.95 post-paid. Limited quantity available, so send for yours now. Also, you'll be captured by the excitement of our Cap 21, barreling along at 90 miles per hour, a few inches off the pavement, inverted. This large 18 by 24 inch size poster can be yours for just $2.98 postpaid. Both make a great addition to your workshop or office. Send $4.95 for the calendar or $2.98 for the poster to Great Plains Model Manufacturing Company, Post Office Box 725, Urbana, Illinois, 61801.
Now, so far, all the engines we've talked about have been standard poppet valve engines. Standard layout, just like in your car. Camshaft-driven push rods, open and close. This is a very good arrangement, but it has one inherent drawback. If you overspin the engine, you can achieve a position called valve float. This condition is caused by the fact that the springs don't return the valves fast enough to cut off before the compression cycle. And this causes, of course, a drastic loss of power. It can cause detonation. It can kick the prop loose. It's one of the reasons why you should never run these engines too lean. And that's one of the things that starts happening when you do lean them out too far. The HP engines are a completely different departure in four-stroke design. They're a drum valve engine. Now, this is not a disc in the head. We're talking about a drum that's maybe half an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm a little blurry on numbers, I'm afraid. It rotates in the top of the head. It's driven from the back of the camshaft by a shaft and 2 crown gears, goes straight up the back, drives this drum through a gearing arrangement, so your timing can really never slip. This drum has several advantages. For one thing, these engines will turn up a lot higher RPM. There are no valves to float. The valve is a hole drilled in that drum that connects the intake, the glow plug, the exhaust, and nothing for the compression cycle. Very, very simple arrangement, minimum of moving parts, easy to maintain, and it completely solves the overspinning problem. My experience with the HP, which is extensive, I've run this little gem a lot, is that you really can't lean it out too far. If you do, it stops running. That's the best indication of what's going on. If the engine quits, you're in business. It's very similar to the handling of a 2-cycle engine. and it's a lot harder to foul yourself up with this little HP 21. Now, the 21 at this point is the only one that's widely available in this country, and incidentally, this engine is not only available mail order. You can buy it in hobby shops for the same or close to the same price as you can buy this engine mail order. And I highly recommend buying through your local hobby shop. Not only is it a good idea to support your local hobby shop so that he's there when you need hinges and props and washers and things, but if you can get a similar price, why not deal locally? When you need service, he's right there. He's not a toll-free phone call and a service charge away. In any case, the engine itself is a beautiful piece of workmanship. HP has always made engines that are just gems. It's a shame to cowl this thing in. But if you have to, if you're building a scale model, it will react quite well to the cowling. One other different thing about the layout of this engine that needs to be mentioned is the lubrication system. You've probably read about this because it's so out of the ordinary that the people who write engine articles have had a ball with this. Like most engines, it's lubricated by the oil that's left over unburned after the compression cycle. It ducts that oil from this little muffler back into the top of the crankcase. So at this point, the oil is spraying over the top of that drum valve and lubricating it. It is also traveling down the housing that holds that rear shaft, going into the crankcase pan, and coming out this little breather nipple in the front of the engine. So what that means is your exhaust products are being blown all the way back through the engine. Now, the exhaust products do not just contain unburned oil. They also contain unburned fuel. And as we all should know, and I didn't find out until I learned it the hard way, that unburned fuel really attracts water and will rust out your engine so fast it's ridiculous. So procedures that I'll get into in a few minutes for using after-run oil to prevent corrosion are really important with the HP 21 engine. I haven't had a look at the HP 49 yet. That, I understand, is a few weeks away from being delivered in the United States. If it's anything like the 21, it's going to be a winner. Now, the last engine that I have experience with, the last type of engines that I'd like to talk about are the Webras. Right now, there are two Webra 4-strokes available, the 40 and the 90. This is a 40. It's a very, very nice engine. It's not a drum valve, it's a disc valve. Really, it's essentially a smaller version of the drum. But while the drum has a hole drilled through its side, which travels between the different ports, the disc has a hole drilled in the top, and it opens and closes various ducts as it turns. Now, those of you who have seen pictures of the Webra in the advertisements for circus hobbies have seen the belt on the front of it. In this case, the belt is covered by a little shield, which I think bears an uncanny resemblance to the grill of an Edsel, but it's a nice-looking engine no matter what it looks like. That belt drives that disc valve in the head. It takes it off directly from the crankcase, from the crankshaft in the front. This is a very simple operation, requires a minimum of lubrication, requires a minimum of maintenance. This is a very lightweight engine because of that. One other feature that you need to know about is the carburetor. The carburetor is mounted directly on the head. This has advantages and disadvantages. The biggest advantage, of course, is that the mixture has an awful lot less distance to travel to get to the combustion chamber than with any of the other engines that we've talked about. So setting your needle valve is generally a much easier procedure on the little Webra. The disadvantage is, well, there is no disadvantage to it if you have a side-mounted engine. No problem. If you're mounting it vertically or inverted, you have a problem with your tank location. Now, if you have a wide enough fuselage airplane, you should bear this in mind and mount that tank at a position where it's as close to level with that carburetor as you can make it. If you have a really odd installation in a scale model, then you should consider using a Robart pump. Some sort of a pumping arrangement to keep the fuel flow to the carburetor as even as possible. This is a very advanced carburetor. It has a low-end needle as well as a high-end needle. Generally speaking, you won't run into problems with fuel feed. But since the carburetor is mounted so high on the engine casting, it's an important thing to remember. Well, that gives you an idea of what my experience has been with the different brands of 4-strokes. There are some 4-strokes I haven't talked about. The Magnum and the laser, both of which come from England, I haven't had a chance to run yet. I will soon, and we'll probably be doing this again in the future. There are also the multi-cylinder four-strokes, the Cavan twin, the Sato multi-cylinder four-strokes, the Technopower radials, which are just amazingly built engines, the new radial engine, the 5-cylinder radial that's supposed to be coming from OS, which is really exciting. That's a whole different article. That's really a whole different world, because now we're talking about maintenance procedures that make you think of the old Pratt & Whitneys mounted on the front of a de Havilland Beaver. So we'll be getting into that one in the future too. But in the meantime, this gives you a little bit of my experience with the meat and potatoes 4-cycle engines that you'll probably be encountering.
I want to welcome you to the 5th Annual Scale Masters Fly-Off in Kansas City, Missouri. My name is Harris Lee, and I'm chairman of the Scale Masters program.
Okay, I'm Dave Johnson from Southern California, and I came clean from Southern California getting a U.S. Scale Masters Championships, which is a championship of some of the best scale modelers in the whole United States. There's some of them can't get here because of traveling and all that, but we had 47 people here today, and this is I flew this in the Masters last year. I came in 10th in United States last year with this aircraft. This is a Proctor Newport. It's a exact scale model, a quarter scale model. It's quarter size to the full scale aircraft. It was flown in World War I, and it wasn't a well-known aircraft at all because it had some bad habits. It was a good maneuverable airplane. It was faster, it climbed more, but it had a problem of shedding wings. So Proctor, which is Lou Proctor from San Diego, California, a well-known manufacturer of beautiful models, put out this is one of the last ones before he retired, which is the Newport 28. It's a kit. It runs in $250, $260. It's got 300 or 400 parts in it. It's the most beautiful kit you'll ever have. All of Proctor's kits are beautiful. When you get this model built and put together, you really don't want to cover it because it's so gorgeous. It's all made out of plywood and spruce. There's maybe 1 or 2 pieces of balsa wood in the whole kit. Everything comes with it, the cowls, the spun aluminum cowl, everything except the wheels. You have to buy the wheels extra, running you about $13. It's covered with Coverite, which is one of the most simple coverings that they have on the market today. It goes on with an iron, and it don't get all out of shape in the sun like most of your coverings. And I've painted it with dope, which is very easy to put on for a beginner especially. It's real easy to put on. If you make a mistake, you can go over it, sand it, in 5 minutes you're back doing it all over again. And it does weather real good. This airplane is 3.5 years old. This was the 16th model that Proctor put out. You do have to buy the guns. The guns will run you about $6 a piece. Otherwise, all the rest comes with it. It's a very docile aircraft when you get it built. You'll be very proud of it. It's very easy to fly. It flies scale speed, and this is where you get all your comments, and people love it. When I fly it, even if I don't fly it, it's very good, like I did in this contest. We had problems getting it on the ground in a very bad crosswind all weekend. But you'll always get beautiful comments on they love your airplane, it handles so beautiful in the air. There's one thing you have to learn to give it a little rudder when you turn it, because it is a quarter size, and when we get up this large, you have to use rudder on most of our aircraft at this stage, but you don't have to do it.
I'm Tom Weems from Hereford, Texas. This is a PT-19. It's a kit, began as a kit from Hobby Shack. It's 1/5 scale, and I've modified it somewhat. The engine is an Enya 1.2. The paint on this particular aircraft is a little unusual. It's a much lighter blue than normal. I've got my documentation, though, from the Smithsonian Institution, and they assured me that everything was okay. And the pilot, I've redone him. You can't see it from there, but the pilot's clothes are made from my wife's pantyhose. I mean, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And I have a mirror here. Again, these are things, small detail. It's a little difficult to see. The rivets were put on with glue drops, and there are over $8 worth of screws to simulate the full-size Zeus fasteners on the full-size aircraft, just in the cowling. The cowling is a fiberglass cowl as opposed to the plastic cowl that comes with the kit. The paint, again, I may have mentioned it, is acrylic enamel, and it was mixed to federal specification numbers. The decals are major model water transfer decals. And well, let's see, I run a 15.8 on this particular engine, and it is inverted, and I've had no problems with it running inverted. Some people have had a little bit of problem with inverted running, but not this particular engine. And, oh, and by the way, this is oversprayed with K&B satin gloss super epoxy. This aircraft is a model of the first PT-19 that was delivered to the United States Army at Wright Field in 1940. On the side is the Wright Field logo, which I happened to paint in red, found out a week after I painted it, it was wrong. I had to redo it in blue. But, you know, when you're building scale models, this type of thing does on occasion happen. This airplane has flaps. Of course, the 4 primary controls: aileron, elevator, rudder, and the throttle. I've put quite a bit of smaller detail on it that, you know, it's not visible until you get fairly close to it. There are handholds in the wings, just as the full-size one had. And rib stitching that takes some time to do, but you know, it's necessary in a competition like the Scale Masters to have all the detail that you can possibly get on it. The serial number of this aircraft was 40, which was the year 2418.
My name is Fred Hewlin. I live in Lee Summit, Missouri. That's a suburb of Kansas City area. And I just finished the 4th round of the 1984 Scale Masters contest, and I still have an airplane, so I guess I'm pretty lucky. Actually, this airplane is pretty old. It was originally built from scratch as a radial engine T-28D. It was finished in camouflage and flown 3.5 years that way. And about that end of that period when I retired it, I gave the rights of that kit to Joe Breedy. I needed another scale airplane to fly later on, so just like prototypically, I one night got up enough courage and literally took a saw and sawed the nose off the airplane and extended it just like North American Aircraft had done, and created the Lycoming turboprop version. There were only 3 of these airplanes ever made.
The first one had tail flutter and crashed. The second one was reinforced, which is the model that I am modeling. And inside the canopy here, there's a camera located. This was done in a prototype to film the tail section to see if they were successful in reinforcing the thing so they wouldn't have a structurally unsound airplane. It's powered by a Super Tiger G60, pretty old engine, but it pulls it around real well. Glass construction on the fuse, foam and balsa on the wings with Coverite covering, and it's painted with polyester paints and a coating of clear epoxy with flattener in it to give it the flat appearance. It's really a nice plane to fly. It's very easy to fly, and it drops bombs and so on. Flaps, air brake, retracts, the typical things beyond that.
Hi, I'm Frank Tiano. I'm from New Paltz, New York. Drove about 1,350 miles to get here for this 5th annual Scale Masters. I'm flying a P-47D Thunderbolt. It's the early version with what they call a Razorback. This piece of material here is why it was called a Razorback. Eventually this was discarded and a bubble canopy put on, like a teardrop, if you will. This is what they call a semi-kit. It's from a man named Burt Baker in California. And it's constructed primarily with a fiberglass fuselage, a fiberglass cowl. And the wings and the tail surfaces are styrofoam covered with a very thin layer of balsa wood to give them some rigidity. You can see some of the balsa wood peeking out over here. I'll explain that in a few minutes. The landing gear retracts as per the prototype, and the inner doors close up afterwards. Upon landing, you drop the trailing edge of the wing. It's called a flap. That slows the airplane down, makes it a lot more steady, lets it handle this wind a lot easier too. It's an exact replica in approximately 1/5 scale of an airplane that was manufactured in about 1942, and it was funded entirely by war bonds from the city of Atlantic City, New Jersey. The city of Lodi, Ohio also did one similarly, but that's why you see the spirit of Atlantic City, New Jersey here. People chipped in their hard-earned dollars back in 1942 and had this airplane built. The pilot went on to become one of the leading aces of World War II. The plane has it's received a competitive static score, meaning it was judged on its appearance based on the original, and it received a pretty high score of 91 and change. It flies very well, and if I were fortunate enough to put in a good flight, I probably could finish in the top 10 here. Unfortunately, yesterday on final approach, which is just before you land, I was about 2,000 feet away from myself, from the runway, and for some reason that I still haven't determined, the engine stopped running. I didn't realize how quickly the plane was slowing up because the flaps were down, the landing gear was down, a lot of wind. So instead of traveling only 50 or 60 miles an hour in a glide, it was probably closer to 20 or 30 miles an hour, and I had no depth perception to realize that. And it clipped the top of a tree and tumbled over, and on the way down, wherever you see these bare pieces of wood is where it broke off limbs on the way down. I about wrote it off. I was very disgusted, needless to say, and I thought I would get there, as I have before, and find this thing in a basket, pieces all over. But what do you think happened? There's a big clump of bushes with prickers on them, and this thing hit these bushes, and it acted like a big spring, and the plane went like that. And it was just laying there, untouched, except for these three little things, and one landing gear had come loose from the ring, which we put back into place with epoxy. So in approximately 25 minutes, I had what you see here again. Flew it again yesterday afternoon, came back today and put in the high flight of the meet so far, 92 points out of 100. So it's been a pretty solid airplane.
My name is Mel Larson, Vice President of Marketing for Circus here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and welcome to the 8th Radio Control Tournament of Champions, November 1984.
The Circus Tournament of Champions is the world's premier modeling event. The semi-annual event brings together the aerobatics champions of nations from around the world to compete in head-to-head competition with prize money totaling $125,000. The Tournament of Champions was originated in 1974 by Mr. Bill Bennett, the president of Circus. At that time, the contest involved precision aerobatics, flying the AMA and FAI pattern maneuvers. Its evolution since that time has been from the hot pattern ships to scale aerobatics ships, flying the sophisticated Arresti aerobatic schedule. The result has brought RC closest to full-scale aerobatics. Mike Lee of RC Video talked with Tony Benetti, a participant in the TOC and president of Circus Hobbies.
Tony, can you describe to us some of the type of maneuvers that you fly here at the TOC?
Well, before we really can describe the type, we'll start with the airplane, which is basically a replica of the real airplane. This is a Steen Skybolt used in full-scale aerobatics. Now, when they fly full-scale aerobatics, they need some sort of instruction and map to find out what maneuvers are in sequence. So they draw out something like this called the Arresti, which has symbols which mean certain maneuvers. Full-scale pilots, just like our RC pilots, use the same method. What we do is we get a toy airplane so that we can see what the maneuver looks like without wasting time flying and learning. So we go through this complete sequence, which is set up for full-scale aerobatic competition. And it's judged by the precision and placement of the maneuvers and how they flow.
This is good. Right in the middle, Ken. Right in the middle of the frame. Okay, can you show us just how a pilot like yourself would practice using the model aircraft going through these arrest-type maneuvers?
Well, okay. Let's say the first one would be a spin. We would take the airplane up to a stall. We would one full spin. We would make a correct line down and pull out. The full-scale pilot is inside the airplane, and he has much more time to read the maneuver he's going to do before he does it. It's on the dash. Now, the RC pilot, he can't take his eye off of this airplane that's out in the air 1 second. He'll be in trouble. So he has to have someone call and describe the maneuver. So it's quite different in that sense, but basically all the maneuvers are identical.
My name is John Britt, and this is a Skybolt.
Okay, Steve Rajecki flying a Reed Falcon, assisted by Debbie Mallory.
By the close of the first day of competition, the pilots holding the top 5 positions were Ivan Christensen of Canada, flying a Laser 200. Steve Rojecki from the USA, flying a Reed Falcon Bipe. Steve Stricker, also from the USA, flying a Stearman Bipe. Wolfgang Matt from Liechtenstein, flying a Superstar. And Werner Schweiker of West Germany, flying a Yak 55.
Japan.
Steve Stricker took a few moments to tell us how he came to be a participant in the Tournament of Champions.
The invitation is given out to 10 Americans and 10 people from other countries. It's based on how you perform at the AMA NATS and during the FAI Masters qualification. And then they assign certain points for each position that you get in both of those contests. And the 10 people with the highest scores from the United States are the ones that go to this competition. 5 team members or 5 people are selected based on their performance in the FAI World Championships, and 5 people are selected by the people who run this contest. This is Chris Lash. He helped design the airplane and built probably 60 to 65% of it, and he can tell us a little bit about the construction.
Well, basically the airplane is made of a foam core, and then it's stringered with balsa. Has a foam core wing that's very lightly built. It's got 16th balsa sheeting on it. There's very little foam left. The only thing that holds it together really are the flying wires, and the end struts. The tail is kind of unique. It's a very thick airfoil with a forward high point to help reduce wiggle in down and up maneuvers. It's Steve punched 1 billion holes in it to lighten it up, and it is very, very light. It's very fragile. It breaks quite often, but
Chris came up with a unique idea on the cowling. He used a pot for the mold for the cowling, and if you look close enough, you can see the rivets where the handles are.
In between rounds, the Christian Eagles performed a full array of aerial maneuvers within the small airspace above the TOC airfield.
Change to the V formation. Charlie, as we said, was the 1972 Men's World's Aerobatic Champion. Tom, flying the right wing, was the 1973 United States Aerobatic Champion. And Gene, flying the left wing, was an unprecedented 3 times United States Aerobatic Champion in 3 consecutive years prior to joining the team in 1972. Now they're coming from your left to your right. They're going to position their aircraft in a situation where they're coming right straight down at the airport and execute. So getting set up for this maneuver, they pull up into what would appear to be a normal looking loop, only unless they've got just a bit more altitude on the entry here, and they float it up over the top a bit. Charlie checks his position. He says, we're going vertical. Let's roll, gentlemen. And they brake. Charlie to the left, Gene going out straight ahead, and Tom to the right. The Christian Eagles down bomb burst.
Precision helicopter flying was also demonstrated by the Colt helicopter team from Japan.
Have a takeoff, of course. They make it look so easy, but it's extremely difficult. It's a very great equalizer for anybody that thinks it's a hot fly to get hold of a helicopter and still find it. thing is, with a helicopter flying over another, you get downwash off the top helicopter, which makes it difficult to trim the other one. Now they're flying a complete circle around the hovering helicopter, which is quite difficult.